Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Never before in the history of sports podcasts have two men brought you opinion and analysis like these two. They speak for a city that's desperate for wins and titles, not whining and travesty. You might not agree with what they have to say, but you'll defend their right to say it. Sports fans across the world, from Chicago, Illinois, this is the Mac and Reed Show.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Reed Show right here on the Barroom Network. We are back, of course, after a few weeks off. Summertime, baby. Follow us on social media. Follow me at 311Mac. Follow Ross at Ross Reed. And we got a lot to get to on the show, of course. Subscribe to the Barroom Network on YouTube and all other audio sources as well, where you'd be getting your podcasting and all the Bears coverage you need. And if you've missed any of our previous episodes, they're up on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Like, subscribe, tell a friend or two. And we have a lot to get to. Bears training camp is underway, of course. We're seeing a Bears undefeated streak here in the preseason. Bears are on Hard Knocks, getting all the national media coverage as well. We will talk about that at length. Impressions of Caleb Williams and the rest of this roster as it's going to be shaken out to 53 before you know it. And Hard Knocks, of course, we'll talk at length about, which is a cool twist on this first season with Caleb Williams at the helm. In addition to all these other great additions, we'll talk about the NFL, talk about many trending topics, surprises along the way. It's been a while. Deadpool, Wolverine, we'll get to all of that. Ross's hair, all these subjects. And we begin, of course, with you, Sir Ross Reed. How's it going, man? Summer good?
Summer's going great. We got the last couple weeks, right? I don't know about your little ones. My kid's going back to school this Monday, so starting to. Everybody always says winding down, but we still really realistically have like another 5-6 weeks left. I'm trying to hold on to it for as long as we can. Absolutely,
yeah. It goes into September. We have some nice weather games on the lakefront, and sunshine's not going anywhere. Still relatively longer days. Thanks to all the barflies for chiming in on the chat. If we missed anything or you had any questions for us, you're welcome. If you're watching live on YouTube, to post in there. What up, Cliff? I am Kingdom Come at Moss. It is always summertime in Florida. Oh, look at Cliff. Last kid moved out. He's an empty nester now. Congrats, Cliff. But we begin today. What's that?
Can walk around fully naked again.
That's right, baby. Give the neighbors a show. That's what we're talking about. We begin today with the Chicago Bears, of course. We've been off for some time. We kind of previewed training camp before Hard Knocks started and all of this action went underway. But, we've seen the flashes from Caleb Williams and, the couple games that he's played in the preseason against the Bills and the Bengals. And it's something to watch, rewinding it back a bit. We saw the extended action against the Bills where Caleb went 4 for 7 for 95 yards. It's pretty good. We saw the scrambling ability over 2 possessions leading the offense. It's important to get those reps, obviously, as we chime about constantly on this show. That just adjusting to the speed is such a tough thing for any player, let alone, arguably the most important player on the field in the quarterback. It's a lot to learn going forward as far as the playbook is concerned and the mechanics. And then the Bears hosted the Bengals. He looked pretty good, basically, in that Bills limited action. But then the Bears hosted the Bengals, and he played the entire half, which was kind of not decided for sure for Eberflus and company when they got late into the second quarter. But, it was a rough start for Caleb and that offense. So there was some nerves adapting to the pro speed, everything I just hammered on. But the paper showed 6 for 13, 75 yards. That first couple of drives you could take out of it. I feel like he couldn't get a pass complete as far as Caleb Williams goes. Ross took to Twitter and talked about the nerves and how he really did adapt going into that second quarter. And man, he showed up in that second quarter. Some of the intangibles that Bears fans and all these scouts and coaches and folks around the league have talked about, really came to fruition. Fields could run the ball, of course, but we saw in the limited action against the Bengals, the lone touchdown of Caleb Williams, the first touchdown of his NFL career, at least in the preseason, coming on that scramble, the run, the deep ball to Tyler Scott, which was cool. Obviously the stuff won't make the tape for one, because it's preseason, and two, preseason, because this wasn't a completion, but that deep ball to Tyler Scott that the defender interfered with was a dime. And, watching Hard Knocks and seeing him mic'd up, he really wanted the touchdown, of course, even though it was a penalty that resulted in the same yardage. But, that 45-yard completion to Rome Odunze was just phenomenal on the, spinning out of the pocket with his mouth guard out the side of his mouth like he was Steph Curry, was just crazy to see. And Rome on the sideline, that was great. The scramble for the touchdown, ultimately culminating the end of the half, was so cool to see for this franchise, just to see those strides, first action at Soldier Field. It's that stuff that makes you go, that's my quarterback. That's, the franchise quarterback that you want to see. And Orlovsky of ESPN, he put it well, talking about Caleb being fine in the first half up until those last 4 plays of the touchdown drive. And then he put him in the same conversation. He kind of just suggested it, put it out there that, the guys who at least consistently do that week in, week out are Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes, of course, who play on a consistent level and who are all pro quarterbacks. But, that's getting ahead of yourselves. But the plays that Caleb did have, like those last 4 plays of the first half, were really impressive. He drew praise around the Bears organization, of course, too, rightfully so. But it's the kind of growth, we'll talk about the rest of the impressions of the offense and defense. But Ross, what did you make of the preseason action thus far, both in that game and the Bills game? Any action Caleb has seen?
Yeah, he looked really good in the Bills game, obviously. I thought this last game against the Bengals, it was funny because he had the Hard Knocks clip that we saw yesterday when Kerry Joseph asked him, scale of 1 to 10, how nervous do you get? And he was like, I'm at a 0. And I was like, that's bullshit.
Yeah,
he was bullshitting. And we get to curse on this show because they're not letting you curse on Hallis Hall out of respect to the McCaskies. But there's no McCaskies here. So, because I can see it. They showed him in the pregame, not on Hard Knocks, but just at the start of the game, coming out of the tunnel, and there were fans on the sidelines. He just looked like he was a little nervous, and as he should. This is your first home game ever at Soldier Field. His parents were in town, in the stands, watching him, and he's the first overall pick. I think you'd be a robot if you weren't nervous. And so I think what happened when he came out, his first 3 passes, I thought he was very quick. He was a little jittery. He sailed, especially the third throw. And the offense wasn't able to get any rhythm. I think had he got it, maybe even a first down on that drive, he would have been able to settle down a little bit. You look at the ensuing drives after that, the slant pass to DJ Moore, that was the right pass. That was the right play. You would hope that in the regular season, DJ Moore is able to be a second or third string corner on a slant pass to get a first down. And I think he will. I don't think these wide receivers are running at full speed right now in preseason. But it was the right read on the play. You always want one-on-one coverage with your number 1 best receiver on third down to get a first down. And then, as you said, as at the end of the quarter, and then you get it more into the second quarter, he really started to relax and loosen up. And I think that's where we got the full Caleb Williams display. The ability to maneuver and manipulate the pocket, the ability to, the spin move with the back and the flick of the wrist, pass to Roman Dunze, the play where he got out into the edge and makes a lineman miss and just whips a pass, that should have been a touchdown if Ndunze was able to keep his feet. What stuck out to me is throughout this entire preseason for him is even when he's scrambling around, he's moving, he was getting out to the edge, his eyes are still looking down the field, trying to find somebody to pass the football. And even on his touchdown run, that's exactly what he was doing. He was, pointing to people. He's moving around guys. He's trying to get somebody open. The running for him is a last resort thing, but he's very good at it. We've seen him now for a couple of preseason games. He saw it in college. He's a good athlete. He's a very twitchy Aaron Rodgers to me. And Aaron Rodgers very early on in his career was able to scramble a lot. So I think once Caleb relaxed and was able to settle down, he looked more like himself. And I give a lot of credit to Matt Eberflus because he could have pulled him out and put bubble wrap on him after about 3 drives. But I like the fact that he kept him out there, allow him to get comfortable. Because now when you go to week 1, which is going to be a home game against the Titans, he's not going to be as nervous anymore. He'll still be nervous, but running out through the tunnels, and now he's able to settle down a little bit. He was able to actually get into the end zone as a quarterback for the first time, for the Chicago Bears, and see how the crowd reacts. And now all of a sudden, everything just settles down a little bit more. So I give a lot of credit to the coaching staff with that. And I think what he went through was just natural. Like I said, I don't know how any young kid in his situation, the first time as a first overall pick, would not be nervous in that spot. I completely agree with Cliff. Oh, by the way, the field looked like dog shit. But listen, we had Metallica here last weekend for a full weekend. It rained a lot during the week. I fully expect that next week is when the Bears do their annual resodding. We know that they've gone to the Bermuda grass since that Matt Eberflus has been there. That was not Bermuda grass that they were playing on this past weekend. And they're going to be able to re-chalk that, and that end zone is going to look a lot different than it was because it was deceiving to everybody, and obviously it caught Roman Doomsday off guard.
Which was another phenomenal throw of what could have been between the Tyler Scott one. That throw in the back end was bananas when you thought he was just throwing it away right in the corner of the end zone. But yeah, it was a trick of the eyes, as it were. And, Cliff also pointed out it was interesting that Caleb had those helmet issues the first few drives. And you could see it when you're watching live on the broadcast on Fox on Sunday or Saturday, as it were, in the preseason. That he kept, motioning to his helmet and going like this, to the sideline. And then, they addressed it as we saw in Hard Knocks, where they switched out the piece in his helmet for another one and turned the volume down or whatever. So it didn't cut out as much. And that could make a little bit of a difference. But I think Caleb would own up to just the way he settled down to being that big takeaway in the first half there. I mean, it was really impressive. You touched on everything that I wanted to touch on again, Ross. And I think that, the important thing to take away from that is it's twofold, that obviously you're not seeing number ones across the board for these teams. But, in your position, when you're number 1 overall pick and Caleb Williams, he could say he's a 0. I don't get nervous, or I haven't gotten nervous since Pop Warner. This is the NFL. You got to have some butterflies, and it'll show a little bit. At least there's so much to take into. And there was the times where he succeeded. It did look a lot like Oklahoma or USC, where he was scrambling a little bit out of the pocket, just trying to extend the play. And if you got to do that just to get in your rhythm, and then you're eventually able to settle down and take full advantage of the weapons that you're going to be having in Dunze and DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift, when you're having that full accompaniment and a solid offensive line in front of you, like, the sky's the limit. But it's, that was the negative that a lot of people were talking about. He's not going to see these DBs that he was throwing against. Regardless, it's impressive tape. Obviously this last preseason game, he's not going to see action. This is more for the guys who are going to back up the starters, the second and third string, as far as this last Chiefs games goes. But as far as, the team as a whole, it built for success on offense, which we've harped on repeatedly. It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out with those receiving options and who will back them up, because now it's a question of, Velus Jones, like, what do you do with him if there's an injury in the top tier of wide receivers? Is it Tyler Scott stepping up, or, is it like Dante Pettis, who always lights up the preseason with Tyson Bagent, or one of these other guys kind of waiting in the wings? These are guys who you'll sign to your practice squad, and guys who will be that third tier, as it were. But then the defense, we haven't talked about them. The defense is getting overshadowed by all this hype, and in 2 showings just across the board. Again, it's preseason. You're undefeated in the preseason. Doesn't mean jack, but 33-6 against the Bills, and then 27-3 against the Bengals. Just really impressive, enforcing turnovers in the first half. I know that Joe Burrow did not play in that half, but Bears still feasted. I mean, they had a pretty solid pass rush. You're rotating in guys who need the rotation like Jonathan Owens and Josh Blackwell. Josh Blackwell, fringe guy, obviously Austin Booker, a late draft pick in the 4th round, who, is hopefully going to be the steal of Ryan Poles' draft, like he really thinks that he might be. But the defense, I mean, they impressed me, Ross. What did you think? Obviously of the starters besides Sweat and company, but even like the second string guys.
The biggest thing that sticks out for me with the defense, and I don't care who's out in the field, I don't care if it was the starters, the stringers, the third stringers, those guys are playing fast and they're playing with some intensity. And I think that has been the theme that I think that's been the theme I've taken away from Matt Eberflus. I think you're starting to see now in year 3, right, of the Eberflus experience. This is what he brought to the table as a defensive coordinator with the Colts. And these kind of things take time, but this is his principles that he's brought over. And you start to see it. You see guys like Kyler Gordon. Kyler Gordon is going to be, he's on a track to be a star this year from that nickel position, the way they're able to use him and unload as a weapon. But Austin Booker, you talked about, he's going to be a very fun guy in their NASCAR package as they kind of pin their ears back a little bit on 3rd down and attack the quarterback. Tariq Stevenson, I think, has looked good as well. Jalen Johnson's been out there and he's been his usual strong self. But overall, everybody's been playing fast. I know everybody likes to make jokes about, how whatchamacallit is Jonathan Owens is Simone Biles' husband, and he's Mr. Simone Biles, but he's impressed me. He plays fast. He hits hard. He plays special teams. For this guy to miss 7 practices, go to Paris, to support his wife, come back. He looks like he hasn't skipped a beat. I actually think he's a really good signing for the Bears. I think he's going to be able to really provide something when they go out there. But credit to the coaching staff, overall. You give a lot of credit to Matt Eberflus. I give a lot of credit to Eric Washington too. Look, Eric Washington was a very good defensive coach coming out of Buffalo, and this guy was also a good football player in his day. And I think they are bringing a toughness mentality, not only to practice every single day, which is iron sharp as iron. It's only helping out the guys like Caleb Williams, but also that offensive line every single day in practice. Second year guys like Darnell Wright, even Braxton Jones, and stuff like that. But boy, they're really putting it to these teams in preseason, and they just look a step faster than everybody else. And I think that's really impressive. It's going to carry over to a week 1 Titans team, which, they potentially could be bottom 5 this year. I don't really trust Will Levis too much. I don't know, DeAndre Hopkins, where that injury is at right now. I know they've got Calvin Ridley out there, but also remember Will Levis, one of the leading sack leaders last year for quarterbacks in taking sacks. With that secondary that the Bears have, with guys like Montez Sweat and Kyler Gordon coming off the edge and DeMarcus Walker and stuff like that, I think this Bears defense in week 1 is going to try and put on a show and really show people all year long that they could be a fringe top 5 defense this season.
It's a hot take right there, Ross. But I mean, you look at the success that the Bears had last year, there were no slouch, and largely because of, the way that Coach Eberflus talked about how he was coaching both, the entirety of the team and then the defense making the play calling last year. And now obviously he's ceding a lot of that play calling to his new D coordinator, but the principles are there and they really do play fast and just impressive enough to allow 3 points from the starters for the Bengals in that first half. And you saw, from that nickel position, it's going to be nasty. The secondary is really well rounded out, for all the guys you mentioned, like Tyreek Stevenson, and, Jonathan Owens is rotating in that safety. We haven't even seen Kevin Byard and the real vet presence that he is going to have playing extensively, I feel like. The linebacker's solid. The one thing that was brought up in Hard Knocks is, and we've talked about it on the show before, is just that lack of someone opposite Montez Sweat and DeMarcus Walker. Like, that's just fuel for the fire for him. But, we saw in that last episode just how there was potential we saw Poles wheeling and dealing, trying to get Matthew Judon over there. But what do you give up to get this guy when he's 32, in the back 9 of his career, coming off a bicep injury, et cetera, et cetera. Ways to talk yourself out of it and maybe not jump the gun and hold on to, those late round picks that you've been so good at hitting on as well. Did you have any thoughts about Judon and just the whole situation about the opposite edge rusher at this point in time, heading into the regular season with 1 week of the preseason left?
Yeah, I think you're seeing that Ryan Poles obviously can see that there is a little bit of a weak spot. If there's defense does have a weak spot in it, it is that opposite guy of Montez Sweat. They don't have anybody consistent. I think DeMarcus Walker is a good run stopper. He's not really your pass rusher that you want out there. Austin Booker is going to be a guy that's going to be out there as a pass rusher, but he's a very obvious pass rusher. Right? He reminds me a lot of Mark Anderson, who was with the Bears and racked up 10 plus sacks for a while for them, but he was only a pass rusher guy. So I can see them wanting to go after a guy like Matthew Judon. I do think that the third round compensation was a little bit rich for me. I agree with him that if they were going to try and make a move like that, they wanted to at least lock him up semi-long term, right? You want to at least get at least 2-year deal underneath them. So I'm glad that they didn't make that deal. Because the window for the Bears, even though I think they're going to be better this year and maybe even fight for a playoff spot, Matthew Judon is kind of like a Super Bowl contending team now situation, because you just don't know if he's going to stay healthy. He's older. You don't know if he's going to be able to you don't know if he's going to fall off a cliff going forward. And I just don't want to do that. I like keeping my draft picks. I like still being able to stay fluid with that situation and either build through the draft, or you still have draft capital where if a better, more younger player than Matthew Judon comes available, we also know who's going to get cut in a couple weeks. That's going to be a big proponent of this as well. So I like him still staying malleable in that and not making that move. That was a classic Ryan Pace move, as we saw Ryan Pace was promoted this week to vice president of football operations for the Falcons. That was a classic move that he does. And I'm glad the Bears didn't do that. I think that assistant general manager Ian Cunningham really is kind of the steady voice in the room with Ryan Poles. We've seen it quite often. Ryan Poles has wanted to jump up and make these crazy outlandish moves. He even wanted to jump up and try and get above Atlanta to go get Roman Dunze. And Cunningham's like, we just be patient. Let it come to us. Let it do those things. So I'm glad that the Bears have that kind of balance in the front office, because I think Ryan Poles definitely has a lot of maverick in him and wanted to make a lot of these moves, which happens with a lot of young general managers. So you can't fault him for that.
No, and Ryan Poles said it himself. If he's a 20-sack guy, he'd be kicking himself. But the fact remains that he's an end piece on, elevating a defense that much. And as you said, there's so much draft capital already. You could easily try to just go next year. You got to see how Austin Booker pans out in the next year. See how it shakes out for sure. It'll be interesting to see the depth of this defensive line. I think that's the most curious one as far as that rotation. We've seen that. I think they're built to stop the run, as you mentioned, with DeMarcus Walker and signing Billings and, plugging in Pickens and everybody else along the line. They got some big bodies, and then Sweat can get after the quarterback. So, and then it was cool to see at least blitz packages where we'll rush a nickel off the edge, and then we'll see how the Bears have some success about that. Just different blitz packages, but it really feels like back to the offense that the organization's doing everything they can to justify keeping Velus Jones on the roster, like moving him to running back, trying to get him work on kickoffs. Obviously, still hopefully, or they're hoping that kickoff rule would help him out. But it feels like you may be better suited just keeping someone else, whether it be like a Colin Johnson or Dante Pettis, one of those guys I mentioned on the roster, or even some other running back in the wings who's had a better preseason. I haven't seen enough. I don't know. What have you made of the Velus Jones experience, at this point, and what the Bears have done with him and his chances to make the roster?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not a big fan of his. I always ask people that tell me that Velus Jones needs to be on the roster, and I say, what do you like that he does that's good? What does he really bring to the table? And most people say he's fast, and so there's a lot of guys that are fast that are out of the league. But I always push back and tell people if, he's at best, he's probably going to get anywhere between 3 to 5 touches a game, which is not a lot of touches. You need to maximize on those touches every single time. But every time he touches the football, he genuinely makes me nervous because he's going to make a crucial mistake in a game. And if any time a guy only gets the ball 3 to 5 times a game, and you feel like he's going to make a massive mistake that could switch the trajectory of a game, then I don't think a guy like that belongs in your roster. We go back to the Bills game, right, where he was playing running back and he fell down a couple times, right, kind of mishandled the snap a little bit. He went out there for a kick return. He had to, he was checking with the referee. He was like, if the ball gets kicked here, do I down it? Does it count? Like, kind of a little uneven about the new rules a little bit, even though this is supposed to be your primary job. And then sure enough, the kicker kicks it in that landing zone where he's supposed to kick it at. And Velus-Jones is almost deep in the back of the end zone. He has to charge the football and he muffs the kick. And he got the ball back, thank goodness. But those are the kind of mistakes to me where it's like, if you're only touching the ball 3 to 5 times, I can't see you on the football field. I can't see you having a roster spot because I don't know what you do well. And I can't trust you in those 3 to 5 times a game. They're playing running back with him. I would keep Ian Wheeler. I know they're going to probably try and sneak Ian Wheeler to the practice squad, but I think he's got a spot on this team. This guy's an HBCU guy with the Howard University. He's got a history actually of returning kickoffs. But boy, he was really explosive throughout this preseason. Yeah, he's got a lot of speed. He hits the hole hard. He hits it the hole with aggression. I think a guy like that has a little bit more of a future in special teams. And even as a guy on the roster, Travis Homer is obviously a good special teams guy. He knows Shane Waldron's offense very well coming from Seattle. I think they're going to hold on to him. And it becomes a numbers game on wide receiver. You've got your 3 already in Keenan Allen, Roman Dunze, and DJ Moore. But now all of a sudden, Tyler Scott, he's going to make the team. That's your 4th guy. He's kind of your deep threat. And then it comes down to, do you want to keep Jones over somebody like Colin Johnson, who is a big body wide receiver, who has shown that he can make tackles on special teams, but also go down the field and make plays as a wide receiver? And then you got Nsimba Webster, who's just an all-around veteran guy. He's just a guy I trust more in a situation. Same thing with Dante Pettis. I know a lot of people, complain and make fun of Dante Pettis, but again, he's just an adult in the room that just knows what he needs to do. And for now, I trust those guys. So it's going to be interesting. I think tomorrow is going to be a telltale sign of what's going to happen with Jones, in the coming weeks come cut time. I think Jones is going to get a lot of snaps tomorrow. I think he should get a lot of looks on special teams, in the backfield, at wide receiver, run a couple end arounds. Let's see how he can respond with a big workload. And if he keeps making mistakes and you feel uneasy about him, then he has to go.
There's so many opportunities you get when you're in Velus-Jones' position. You're essentially drafted maybe as a 3rd, 4th option at wide receiver, but more so you were drafted for your special teams ability. And we saw it last year, repeatedly muffing punts or kickoff returns. You talked about the one just from this preseason, and you're second guessing. You're caught on tape. You don't know what the rules are. There's this experiment at running back, but it comes back to those guys you mentioned, and Wheeler and Pettis, even more. Colin Johnson, guys like that who are just doing more all around in special teams, and then either on offense or defense. That's going to be the difference. And like you said, it really is. It's like put up or shut up time for Jones if he's going to be relegated to the practice squad, even making the 53-man roster at this point, depending on how they play against Kansas City. So it's just a bummer to see Velus in that situation. I do like the Ian Wheeler story. The guy who's just a speedster and who could be off at medical school, but he's like, this is the dream, and this is what I want to be doing. So we talked about pretty much all the fringe guys, I think, that are playing for a lot tomorrow. Anybody else that you're having an eye on in the game against Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean, I think the running back spot is going to be very interesting. Between Ian Wheeler, between Velus-Jones. I think the quarterback situation is very interesting. Tyson Bagent really bounced back last week. He had an awesome game. So what does that do for guys like Brett Rippon? What does that do for a guy like Austin Reed? I think we're going to get a good look. A lot of those guys, I think one's going to sneak into the practice squad. Obviously, Rippon is the one that has the edge there, just because again he knows this Shane Waldron offense. He came from with Waldron both in LA and with Seattle. And then I think the most underrated spot that nobody's really talking about is the tight ends position, because we know we've got our three guys in Kmet, Gerald Everett, and Mercedes Lewis. But I think people forget Steve Carlson was out there. But this Brendan Bates, this rookie that they got, this undrafted guy, he's been super impressive. This guy has been impressive both as a blocker and as a catcher. And I think the Bears realistically could keep 4 tight ends on the roster. And I think the fourth guy could be Brendan Bates. I think he's a guy that they, especially as you get into the colder months, I think Shane Waldron is going to want to run more 12 offense and get a guy like that out there and show his versatility both in the blocking and the passing game, especially when you have a three-headed monster like DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, and Roshan Johnson. So it's going to be interesting to see those guys tomorrow. On the defensive side of things, I think everything else is pretty wrapped up right now. I would pay attention to a guy like Micah Baskerville, who is the inside linebacker, and he's been playing a lot on defense, but he needs to show if he could do something on special teams, in my opinion, to make this roster, because he's not going to play a lot when you're sitting behind Tremaine Edmonds and Jack Sanborn, right? So if you want to make this roster, Baskerville, to me, you're going to have to go out there and show what you can do on special teams. And in the past, he's a veteran. He's been in the league for a while. That just, hasn't quite been his game. So, there's a couple of those guys are going to be, on the look as well. Keep out for guys like Daniel Hardy as well, who's a potential backup to Montez Sweat, and Jacob Martin as well, who's the veteran that they brought in from Indianapolis.
And Hard Knocks, obviously, that's, I feel like their bread and butter is focusing on these guys. And they do their due diligence on all the stars on the respective teams that they follow over these seasons they've had, but they look at the guys like Colin Johnson, Noreen Wheeler, or Austin Reed, guys who are more on the fringe of making that cut of the 53-man roster when it comes around. So that's a good transition to get into Hard Knocks. And I've caught up on all these 3 episodes, and it's fun to see that they finally get in Chicago, and the intro kind of gives you chills with the old NFL films, narration there, and riding along the river and just seeing, shots of Gale Sayers up against the skyline, and the storied players and defenses, and Bill Murray, just great. It just hits on all notes there. But it was cool to see in this last one. It's obviously very Caleb Williams centric and showing the most action he got in the preseason. Everyone hyping him up for that matter. But there was no real coverage of Tyson Bagent up until this one. And now this is the episode where we finally see a lot of his dad at the game, just kind of meatballing out there, and then a little more of the Tyson Bagent story. And rightfully so, just, getting into this, he was the backup to Fields last year and saw some action as well. Really grown into this second quarterback role, I think, quite well to help teach Caleb some things and just wait in the wings if anything is to, God forbid, happen. But I did not have Matt Ryan on my bingo card for Hard Knocks as far as him, and the connection to Ryan Poles, but I guess it tracks because they played at BC together. And it's funny to see Matt Ryan in that capacity, just not on the field. But we saw the insight into Matthew Judon and that potential trade. That was cool to see after it broke that he was going to Atlanta. It led to that coverage of the Austin Booker drafting. Again, I mentioned Austin Reeves coverage and Ian Wheeler. Little Dirk getting in there. Caleb being mic'd up saying, "I don't get nervous," of course, is just like, we all know that's a lie. Lots of focus on Torrey Taylor, the Aussie, who we didn't talk about much, in this Bears segment so far, but living up to the hype of punters so far. And it's funny to see these rookie like talent shows where they're all singing. I don't know if you've had a favorite so far, and I think he should sing From Land Down Under when it comes time for to take the mic. But yeah, what have you thought about Hard Knocks so far? You got any favorite moments, any impressions like that?
Yeah, my favorite moment was Tory Taylor's GPS taking
Getting
him the
lost.
long way. Right? What was he doing? Listen, that hotel that they stay at, I can see it right outside my window. It is the Marriott Marquis in the South Loop. It's right next to the McCormick place. That's where the Bears stay on pregame, the night before pregame, and then they usually they have the buses will take them over. But his GPS, because I can see it in the background, this is literally my neighborhood, took him down Cermak, up to Michigan Avenue, down to Roosevelt, into Soldier Field. And all my guy had to do was just cut down Indiana. It was right there. So, Tory Taylor, we got to get you a new GPS, man, whatever you're driving. That wasn't working out.
Yeah, Santos joked with him. He's like, we drive on the right side of the road. That was funny. His ass was like, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to drive into the stadium.
Right.
Probably asked you for directions, Ross.
That was funny. Also, it looked like he was driving like a Cherokee, and then like he pulls in, and somebody's driving like a $95,000 Porsche Cayenne truck or something like that. So I'm pretty sure the young man will
like a Ford F-150. Yeah,
exactly. He'll upgrade his car soon enough, or maybe not. Maybe not. He seems like a simple guy who just lives a simple life, right? I mean, my takeaway from Hard Knocks is how it is every year. I think we've gotten to the point where HBO filters out so much of the beneath the surface stuff. A lot of it is to protect the league and the team and the personalities. I also think that these guys, so much in the social media era are so media conscious that they're very careful about what they say. I think that really showed up a lot to me with the Caleb Williams stuff, both at the beginning of the episode where him and Matt Eberflus were meeting. And I think Caleb was just kind of reserved in that moment because he knew a camera was right in his face, all the way up into the 1 to 10 stuff. It was such a very cliche camera in my face kind of thing, right? But I always say, Hard Knocks is it's fine fodder leading up to the season. I think most of it's pretty corny, but when it's your team involved, as we're seeing now, that's where it gets exciting. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with it. Is it just gets you really juiced up and amped up for this season to start. And I think the biggest takeaway I have from it all is this team can be fun. And this team looks like they are close knit and they do like each other. And I do think that there is a tenacity on this team going against each other, day after day, week after week. And I think Matt Eberflus has done a good job in navigating this offseason. It's a very tumultuous offseason from, having the first overall pick to saying goodbye to Justin Fields, to the Jalen Johnson, stuff, to trading for Keenan Allen. Now you have, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator that you've got to bring in, a new quarterback, and he's been able to navigate it very well. I think this is the one of the most prepared Bears teams I've seen heading into week 1 from a long time. They're relatively healthy. It feels like I feel like there is an actual adult running the offense. I feel good about the defense, and the future should be bright. And I think that's been awesome. It's going to be fun to watch a preseason game tomorrow and not be concerned too much about injuries. And then it'll be fun watching that last Hard Knocks episode next week, right? Do we get 1 or 2 more? I think we get 1 more.
I don't know. At least
maybe we get 5. We're gonna get 5, so maybe we'll get 2 more. Okay. And then it's like, man, I'm ready for week 1. Let's bring the Titans into town and let's get after it. You and I will be in Houston for week 2, which is going to be exciting, right? For Sunday Night Football, CJ Stroud versus Caleb Williams. So that's what Hard Knocks has done for me. It's lit the fire, and I'm ready for football. We get, starting this weekend, we get nonstop football until February. We get real college football this weekend as well.
That's right. It's coming back really quick. And that as far as Hard Knocks is concerned, it's a formula that the Bears just fit into. You see, the family time cut to DJ Moore and his family after signing his fat contract. You talk about now that's like the different I feel like wrinkle is you're seeing a bit more they're focusing more on sort of the behind the scenes stuff as far as GMs. That's what you saw with Hard Knocks with the Giants and the handling of their draft board and the handling of Saquon Barkley's contract. And you saw a little bit of it with Ryan Poles and the Austin Booker situation and Matthew Judon, but it really just does fit back into that, and it's crazy again to Caleb Williams. It's pressure enough to be the number one overall pick, to be that hopefully savior quarterback for a franchise. The last one that doesn't have a 4,000 yard passer. If I hear that again, I'm gonna fucking scream. But it's a fact for the Bears. And to have these cameras immediately pointing in your face in your first training camp, in this professional setting, it's a lot to take in. So it's got to be that little bit of nerves, of course. But he's all smiles. He's taking deep breaths and he's composed himself really well. That's the focus is number 18 of the Hard Knocks, and then everything kind of falls by the wayside. You'd want to like to see a little more of the offensive and defensive line, what's happening. My wife is screaming at our daughter. It's very, very much screaming, but you can't all hear that. But yeah, just seeing, again, the stories like an Ian Wheeler and guys you root for that can have quality reps. Velus Jones, it was funny how he had a ferret in college that they really focused on, and the media took that out. Cliff also mentioned that Eberflus's daughters kind of had some good comments, and you saw that in the first episode when they went to Eberflus's just ridiculous lakeside estate, which was real nice. I think that's what you said, Ross. Like, shout out to his realtor, just good work there. That's a nice spot.
Yes.
But the daughters were pretty articulate about it. But yeah, Simone Biles just getting torn apart for good reason as well with this last game, showing up on the sidelines, and you can't wear that. You can't wear Packers on the sideline. Doesn't matter if it has your husband's face all over it. You don't wear the enemy colors. It's just crazy.
I'll shoot her some bail. She is our most decorated Olympian ever. She had a very busy summer. Sure. She probably doesn't know if she's coming or going, what time zone she's in right now. She's got a boot on her foot.
Yeah.
I promise you, come week 1, she will have a much different jacket on, if she even needs it that day. It might be beautiful and warm enough that day where she doesn't need it. It was a very off and on rainy day this past Saturday, so she probably panicked and put on whatever she had. But I promise you, whether it's the Chicago Bears or it's one of our amazing talented fans, or if it's Kyle Juszczyk's wife that seems to create some gear for all the spouses around the league, she'll be wearing a Bears Jonathan Owens jersey or jacket or a combination of both come week 1. And I also can promise you that the Soldier Field crowd and the Bears will also celebrate her on the field as well, and congratulate her for what she did in Paris, which, we didn't talk about that, but shout out to the Olympics this year. Well, just absolutely phenomenal. Great bounce back for the Olympics from what we saw in Tokyo a couple of years ago, because I thought the Olympics were going to be dead as a society, but man, I had a lot of fun watching that. So, but yeah, she'll be good. Somebody will get her right.
Yeah, like you said, probably jet lagged and partying a bit. I saw something where they tried to charge her like $25,000 for a bottle of champagne in Paris. Just like get out of there as quick as you can and as healthy as you can. But yeah, shout out to all the Olympians. It was great, and we've covered the Bears at length. We can certainly switch to that as we were off pretty much those 2 weeks when the Olympics were on, but. The almost said the Bears, the USA tying with China for gold. And in the bigger sports, team sports, I feel like really hitting obviously on the men's and women's sides of basketball, and then rolling through swimming and gymnastics, the ones that we were excited to see, some track and field as well. No Lyles, with his COVID and everything else in between, was really impressive. And Sha'Carri Richardson. Really nice to see it again, where you worry about your athletes in sort of climate like this when it's foreign territory, as it were. Just the accommodations, they talk about these cardboard beds or whatever, but it's nothing compared to like Sochi or something we've seen in the past. Seemed like Paris really did a pretty good job putting it on. It really sets us up for quite an LA Olympics that we're going to see in 2028, as Tom Cruise did his stunt to end it all in the closing ceremony. And then we saw a little performance of Dre and Snoop edition. I don't know how much you saw that, him and his commentary for the Olympics, but just keep it going. You did well, NBC, and Snoop's got more money than God at this point, but a really good addition. As were, like Kenan Thompson, and they had some SNL people in there. Colin Jost was a goofy part of it as well. But yeah, that'll be. It's just going to be bananas when you think about the infrastructure that's going to have to go into LA. But shout out to all those Olympians, and USA. It really showed up as was expected.
It did show up. Congratulations to all the athletes that won. Katie Ledecky, obviously, she's an amazing decorated swimmer. The basketball was outstanding, both on the men's and women's side. Steph Curry, what he had to do to knock off Paris in that final game was just absolutely exhilarating. To me, the biggest takeaway was how well Peacock did as a network in covering it all. I don't know how many people watched on Peacock. I was watching it. They had the gold zone. They had the different boxes and the way you can toggle to different sports and stuff like that. And I just found it so much fun. I thought the time zone thing was perfect because I was able to watch it while I was at work throughout the morning and in the day. And then you got the prime time stuff at night with Mike Tirico and Maria Taylor. So I had a lot of fun watching the Olympics those last couple of weeks, especially in a city right now where we don't give a shit about baseball. It was a welcome sight to have and see some competitive sports. I love the track and field stuff. It's my favorite stuff out there. So, shout out to everybody. You talked about Noah Lyles. You talked about, Sha'Carri Richardson, but, Sydney McLaughlin was awesome. Gabby Thomas was phenomenal as well. It was just a lot of fun. And now shift our sights to LA. I actually listened to a podcast about from the guy that is running the whole thing for LA. And they've been having this plan in place and in motion for over 8 years now. And it's such a cohesive, it's crazy how much goes into just putting an event together for 2 weeks. And everything that they have to do, they've started 4 years ago. And so it's going to be crazy to see that. I have no doubt LA is going to do a fine job. It's certainly a big enough city. It's got a lot of infrastructure. They're going to move some events, like some of the soccer events, to different parts of the country. You can go to like Kansas City and stuff like that for some of those events. But for the most part, they're going to have swimming, like even down closer to San Diego. I mean, swimming, surfing down closer to like San Diego and stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I would not want to live there for something like that, as somebody that right now is in a bubble thanks to the DNC, because I'm sandwiched between McCormick Place and United Center right now. And that is small potatoes compared to what they're going to go to. Godspeed to all of our LA friends and family and fans out there that have to go through that. But you have 4 years to worry about that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it was a good bridge to get us to now where we're at right now, which is gearing up for football. We're doing our fantasy football drafts. We're starting to talk about college football and get that stuff out there. And then, we're a couple weeks away from week 1. Thank goodness.
There's still time. We got to get breakdancing back in 2028. Shout out Ray Gun.
I was going to say she ruined it for everybody.
I guess so. Yeah, she stole the focus from the actual.
You got to have breakdancing in LA, like on Venice Beach. Like that's the perfect backdrop for breakdancing.
Yeah. To start in Paris and then pull it for LA. That just seems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like you said, it's a overwhelming. Whoever this person is who is in charge of, setting up and really just making sure that the Olympics go down seamlessly in LA. Kudos to them for a city that just has notoriously bad transit and you have to drive everywhere. It's just going to be
so that's one tidbit that he said is they're not allowing anybody to drive to these different events. So whether you're an athlete or you're a spectator at the events, you cannot drive to any event. It is going to be a drive-free zone. You either have to take their designated buses that they have, or they've got other different modes of transportation, which I think is smart. You don't want, the last thing you want when you do something like this is have all your roads bogged down by 75,000 cars on the 401. That sounds like a nightmare to me.
It would just be worse than it ever was before.
Correct.
Gridlock on the regular out there. Yeah, I got 2 sisters in LA. They're not looking forward to it. Just like Chicago, when we kind of dodged a bullet. We came in last in that. Remember when when that was going down
That's
too.
right. And thankfully we did.
Yeah, it would not have been great. On the note of the DNC you talked about going on right now, Ross, we've seen it all, the good parts, Lil Jon performances, and
Yeah.
Colbert Late Show, The Daily Show, Jon Stewart, Obama roasting Donald Trump. The bad things, of course, are threats to local establishments, and then even more congestion. Just hard to get anywhere right now. But have you followed it all? I just saw it was like Keenan Thompson was doing something tonight.
Yeah, I followed. The old man in me at the ripe old age of 42 years old.
Stevie
Uh,
Wonder performing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, my biggest gripe about this is why are we doing all these on both sides, RNC and DNC? Why are we doing these keynote speeches at like 10, 11 o'clock at night? Like, what are we doing here? Like, why are these things?
Got to give you what they gave Biden.
Why are these things not going on any sooner? So, obviously, thankfully, we live in a world where a lot of streaming and non-linear, we get our content in a non-linear way. So I catch up with it throughout the next day on our various social media platforms and YouTube and stuff like that. But I will say, as a resident of Chicago and a proud Chicago defender every single day, the city has done a great job this week. The city has done a great job. Shout out to Chicago police. They've kept things in order this week. On Sunday, I went from my house in South Loop to Old Town for a fantasy draft and back. No issues. Today, I went to my office downtown, River North, and I've been able to move around and live life like normal this week. We've had no incidents, no issues as we have. And it goes to show you, again, Chicago, world-class city, third largest city in the country. These kind of events we should have no problem doing, and we've shown it. We've got one more day tomorrow, and then everybody ships out of here. And I've seen a lot of people not from here on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, just shouting out Chicago as a whole and the people of Chicago in the businesses and the restaurants and stuff like that, and the hospitality, the hotels, and Chicago crushed it. And it shows you that Chicago is ready for much bigger events. I don't know if we'll ever get a Super Bowl here because of the weather, but if we ever did, we could certainly handle something like that.
Yeah, no question. Shout out to the organizers, doing very well with the DNC in town. It's been fun just to see that, and Daily Show out of the Athenaeum, and I believe Late Show was the auditorium.
Colbert was at a Cubs game, right? Yeah, he did last night. Colbert was last night, and everybody's going to leave town, and then we make way for. We got Pink at Soldier Field this weekend. So if you're a Pink fan, come on out and see her. And then
tickets.
Out in Rosemont this weekend, we've got Missy Elliott, Busta Rhymes, and Timbaland.
Oh, that's this weekend?
Yeah, it is this weekend.
Man, that's a nice lineup.
So the fun doesn't stop in Chicago. We've had some fun here this weekend. Metallica brought out a very fun, interesting group walking around downtown. Shout out to all the Metallica fans. They had a blast here. It's been a fun summer. It's been a lot to do here. Obviously, we had Lollapalooza a couple weeks ago, and so it's what happens when you live in a large city. I don't complain about it, and I really begrudge anybody that does. If you don't like it, go move to I don't know.
Go move. That's it.
Go move to Omaha. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, buddy. It's popping in the summer, that's for sure. Every weekend in the summer, it has been great and good to see as we gear up for football season. We got to get out of here, but real quick, Ross, did Deadpool and Wolverine? I assume you saw it.
I've not seen it.
Ah, you son of a gun! Well,
I'm pretty out on Marvel right now. That's my my Marvel thing.
My main question is,
I'm pretty out. I'm pretty out on Marvel right now. I did see Long Legs. I did see Trap. Both very fun, cheesy kind of horror, suspense popcorn movies that go well with a tub of popcorn and a nice IPA. So those would be two recommendations I would give you.
Heard good things about Long Legs, man, Ross. Yeah, you can talk to you about Deadpool. That's fine. Yes. Well, we got to get out of here. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thanks to the Barflies for, of course, chiming in the chat. Remember, you can follow us on Social media, follow me at the 311 Mac, follow Ross at Ross Reed, follow Barroom Network at Barroom Network as well for all our great Bears coverage as we gear up for the start of this regular season. Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Remember to like, subscribe, tell a friend or two. Be good to each other out there. Enjoy your summer, everybody. But for now, we say deuces. So long.
Peace.